Hey folks, and welcome back to the channel. In this video, I will be showing you my playoff pick'em. Now, if you haven't noticed already, I have been doing playoff preview videos where I get to go really in-depth on the 8 teams that are in the playoffs and really focus on each quarterfinals matchup that we're guaranteed to get and really just dive deep on that matchup and on the teams. And so I have already released previews for Spirit versus Falcons, Vitality versus Mongols, and Furia versus Na'Vi at this point. However, there was only 3 days between the end of Stage 3 and the start of the playoffs, and there's 4 quarterfinals matches, so you can kind of do the math. And unfortunately, there was no way for me to crank out all 4 quarterfinals videos and still get a full playoff pick'em out in time before the first quarterfinal started getting played. So I have detailed analysis of Spirit Falcons in their matchup, Vitality Mongols in their matchup, Furia Na'Vi in their matchup, but I have yet to be able to put out a Mouz versus FaZe clan quarterfinal preview video. But it is still coming. It will get released on the first day of the quarterfinals games because they do not play until the second day of quarterfinals games. So it'll still come out in time before the match happens, so you can be informed if you'd like to with some deeper analysis. But for this playoff pick'em, I'm not going to be able to dive into it as deeply as I have been doing with the playoff preview videos. So please go check out those playoff preview videos if you don't mind, and any other content I have. I've been doing a lot of content around the major. I've been doing a lot of content all year. I'll be continuing to do content going into next year, and yeah, I mean, that's really what it boils down to. Also, if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. What are you doing? Would appreciate that. A like, a comment. Those things help too. Feed the algorithm. If you can do the hype points thing on the mobile app on YouTube, do that. Appreciate that. And you can follow me on socials if you want. Links are down below. I'm on Twitter/X. I'm actually just a little bit away from 12,000 followers on Twitter and X. So if you want to follow me there, that'd be great. Instagram, same thing. So yeah, just, getting all that house cleaning, I guess, done. As far as how things have been going so far, Stage 1, I got 4 picks correct. I really just kind of missed out because I chose the wrong 03. I went Red Canids and Huns nearly went 0-3, but they did get the win over Linvision, and that one best of 3 is actually what is stopping me from being in the run for Diamond, because during Stage 2, I was able to get 5 picks correct, and during Stage 3, I was able to get 7 picks correct, and so I would be well on my way to Diamond, but unfortunately, I was just that one game off in Stage 1. So let's get into the playoffs, and once again, I have done detailed videos on these matchups, so I'm going to be very much cliff notes when it comes to actually making my picks here, and for the semifinal matchups, we don't even know if they're going to happen for sure. And so, there's only so much that I can do there. But when it comes to Spirit versus Falcons, I actually think this is the hardest one to predict out of all the quarterfinals matches. It feels like the tightest game, and that is because these are both 2 top 5 teams in the world for sure. I think Falcons has been on a steady climb. I've seen them continue to grow since Kiyosuke's been on the team. Like, obviously, their first time out with Kiyosuke didn't go so hot, but I think they've placed top 4 at every event they've played at since then. Kiyosuke continues to get more and more comfortable in the system. They've kind of rearranged some roles a couple different times to kind of optimize things, with Nico taking a little bit more of a back seat as an extremity rifler. Monasi was able to get a little bit more focus on him after initially maybe he took a back seat when they were first trying to implement Kiyosuke. And yeah, they're just starting to get the pieces actually really firing, and they do just have a shit ton of skill and firepower all across the lineup. Their map pool's also really been coming around the last few tournaments. They're really building a nice map pool. They have a couple of really big strengths, and they just have a good supporting cast of maps around those strengths. And so just really they're trending in the right direction is really kind of the point I'm getting at. And I feel like it's almost inevitable at this point that they will eventually start putting some titles on the board. They are the one team here, aside from I believe Mousesports, who don't have a win this season because Spirit won the first couple. Vitality obviously has a win. Mongols did get a win at EWC. Fury obviously has 4 wins this season. Na'Vi won a smaller tournament at Star Series, so they haven't won a Tier 1 event, I guess you could say. And then, yeah, FaZe obviously has had, a really, really crappy season. So I was really off on what I initially said. But, kind of the top 5, top 6-ish teams ranked in the world, they're kind of the one that's missing one. And I feel like maybe this could be the one. But I feel like one's coming, sometime, early next year if this is not the one. So really do have a lot going for them, in my opinion. They're in good form this major. Obviously, the Blast Awesome Major was a huge debacle, but they've really recovered since then. And, I feel like they are really kind of all guns blazing. On the Spirit side of things, they do have a shit ton of talent in just Shiro and Donk alone, but the issue is they're so reliant on that top-heavy skill nature of the team at this point in time. I know some people will say, oh, Chopper's had some good games in the major. Yeah, but come on, is that really going to continue on? Like, is that really something that we can count on happening all the time? And then the simple issue is that while Tenier looked like he would be a good pickup and would add a third star to this team and really increase the overall firepower to allow them to have that wider distribution of talent like a Falcons has, like a Vitality has, like a Furia has, some of these other skill teams, Mouse Sports, I'd put them up there too as far as having like widely distributed firepower. They just haven't been able to tap into that yet. And if Tenier, if he can unlock that next step, then they really would be right there with everyone else. However, it is true that Tonk on his own is just so much higher than every other aggressive rifler in the scene that it does just kind of almost make up for not having that third star that some other teams have, right? In some matchups, that will just be the case that he can just kind of power it through together. But it does suck that you have that over-reliance on him. But him and Shiro do complement each other pretty well. And, again, Tenier's been decent this major. He just hasn't, really excelled yet, right? And then Zwei, I just feel like he's been kind of a dud, unfortunately. I feel like in certain moments he looks okay, like when he's able to just focus on his crosshair and, anchor a spot down and just focus on aiming at people coming at him. He can actually do that pretty well. But it just, some of the decision-making, some of the movement, it just feels a little bit out of place. And it just hasn't panned out. And so, for me, I think this is close to a coin flip. I do think it could go a lot of different directions. I do think that they do have some map pool overlap. I do think both these teams have pretty good map pools. They obviously have their permabans that are going to get avoided in this game, but they do have some similar strengths. So they have similar strengths on Ancient, for example. They both like to play DusT 2 at a pretty high level, just to give a couple of examples. And, Falcons has really climbed on Nuke and has really put that at the forefront of their map pool, where Spirit kind of used to be really good on Nuke, but they've had some recent form dips in it. So there's a lot of interesting interactions that goes on in this matchup, in my opinion. But at the end of the day, if I had to pick one, I will pick Falcons. But this is like a 55-45, 59, or 49-51 kind of vibe. It's just, not that close. Now, when it comes to Vitality versus Mongols, I do think that this is not nearly as close of a match as Falcons versus Spirit, but it's not to just completely count Mongols out. I think that Mongols, the fact that they were really struggling, at the couple events in Asia when they first brought controls in for Senzu, and we don't even really know what their permanent future is going to be. I do believe controls is just a stand-in. I don't know that they'll permanently use them as a fifth. I think they'll probably kind of do some searching after this major to figure out what they really want to bring into next year. But Controls has played really well at this tournament. That is to be said. He's done the aggressive rifling really well. They've done a pretty good job of kind of figuring out how to fill Senzu's gaps by, in some cases, having Controls play for Senzu 1-for-1, but in some cases having Blitz kind of cover some of those positions. And we have seen Bazino step up and be a little bit more aggressive when need be. Techno's always been willing to do it as well, so they've been able to kind of spread, the aggression to be able to make up for Senzu's aggressive rifling role-wise to a degree, though I don't think anyone still has that same ceiling that Senzu could really have when he was really hitting a stride, and so I think that still does limit them a little bit. I do think that, that they're just not, prime top 5 in the world Mongols anymore. That's just a fact. But they did play a really good Stage 3. They certainly look a little bit better now that they had some time to kind of figure things out since they had some off period between this event, Blast Rivals, and Chengdu and such. And you can't completely count them out. And they have had success against Vitality in the past, as a core. So you can't completely count them out of this game by any stretch of the imagination. It's just, for me, their map pool is in a really weird place. They're 50-50 on almost every map that they play. They don't really have a super strong home map, it feels like. Maybe there's one. But, I think most of the maps I was looking at when I did the Vitality Mongols video, you can go look at this again if you want a real deep preview of Vitality versus Mongols and covering both these teams, is that, I think the last 12 games they played in every map, they're 6-6 or something like that. And it's just man, that really puts you in kind of a weird spot, map pool wise, whereas a team like Vitality has a few maps they are dominant on and are really well rounded and do have a really deep and widely spread map pool. Speaking of Vitality, look, they are the clear number 2 team in the world after Furia currently, and they are not that far removed from being the best team in the world. They've placed top 4 or better every single tournament this season. They've made a few grand finals. They've won a tournament. Yes, Mongols has won a tournament too, but they've had a dip, when they lost Senzu those couple of events. But, they're still a solid contender, don't get me wrong. With all that said, I do feel like I am just going to pick Vitality to win this series. And again, I did go into more depth in my quarterfinals preview video if you'd want to look at that to get a little bit more info, but that's just kind of what I'm feeling. Now, when it comes to this semifinal, I think this could really go either way, which is kind of why I'm going to make some decisions a little bit later. I do think that this is also an incredibly tight matchup, just like Falcons and Spirit is. And both of these teams have been consistently placing top 4, but not consistently making grand finals. Still, Vitality has made more grand finals than Falcons has. And they do have their own kind of interesting, head-to-head history. The thing is, I don't even know for sure this is going to be the semifinals matchup. Like, there's a chance Spirit does win this, and you have Vitality versus Spirit, and that kind of completely changes things, right? Maybe Mongols does get some type of crazy upset, and then the team over here is completely favored. Falcons, the winner of Falcons Spirit would be favored over Mongols more than likely. So it becomes really odd, to do this, but I do just think there's a little bit more consistency in Furia. I feel like while Falcons has made a lot of growth, I do still see them sometimes lose like pivotal rounds or really big swing rounds, or just kind of drop the ball in like some key instances that kind of hold them back from reaching their full potential. Whereas I feel like Vitality's already reached their full potential. And yes, you could say that their form has waned a little bit this season compared to last season, but you're talking about waning from the best season of all fucking time to still being always placing top 4 or better, still being a contender in every tournament that they play in, still having a wide range of talent. Yes, Muncie and Ziwu, that head-to-head is always very interesting, but while Muncie might be the better pure opper, I think Ziwu's hybrid factor and his aggressive rifling kind of puts him kind of in this really crazy category. I do think that Kiyosuke is definitely being a better entry than Flames right now. That must be said. I think Apex and Kixen, Kixen might even be fragging a little bit better than Apex. But then the calling and the experience in these situations you have to bring that into consideration. And then when you kind of look at the rest, you look at, someone like Rops versus Tess, it's not even close. It's definitely Rops. And then at that point, you're looking at like a Nico versus Mezzi. And, Mezzi is good. He does his role very well. And I know that Nico has sometimes, collapsed in big games, in big moments, big pressure moments. But still, I do favor, Nico in that position. So, like, skill-wise, overall skill, Falcons has it. But Vitality just, they have more layers to them, I feel like. They're a little bit more well-rounded. They're a little bit more polished. And they're a little bit more tested in these situations and successful in these situations. And so, yeah, I would just go ahead and say that Vitality do make it all the way to the grand final. Now, on the bottom side of the bracket, Furia versus Na'Vi. This is probably the most lopsided of all the quarterfinals. If I'm just going on like pure form, I mean, you have Furia, who they're clear number 1 team in the world, who just won 3 tournaments in a row, won 4 of the last 5 tournaments they've played, and have just been peaking at the right time, basically, and just look absolutely fucking incredible. I did just release a quarterfinals preview video about Furia versus Na'Vi and really went in depth about this, but their roster across the board is just firing on all cylinders right now. I mean, Yukina looks like one of the best entry fraggers in the world right now, an aggressive CT rifler. Maladoy is one of the best oppers in the world, and is very aggressive as well. K Serrato is just a great flex rifler, can sometimes be aggressive, can sometimes, be more mid to late round, depends on the map, depends on the moment, and then Yuri has just been, like, theoretically their 4th best player rating-wise, but can sometimes be their 2nd or 3rd best player on the server, and just overall wide-ranging, firepower just across the board for this team. Their map pool is up there. It might be one of the best map pools next to Vitality right now. I mean, the fact that they are so damn good on Overpass, Nuke, and Train, and they are still very capable of playing DusT 2 at a very high level. Their Inferno is, getting more well-rounded, and they can play that at a high level. And even recently, their Mirages looked very good. So their map pool is also just well-rounded, and they do have a good wide-ranging capability of CS. Like, they have that obviously pacey, flashy, aggressive play style, but it's very organized. Their spacing is very good. They're all on the same page. They had such good team play in the mid rounds, and they can slow it down and play the defaults when need be, throw the set pieces with the high utility rates. I mean, they just have it all. They're just such a full package, and that's why they've been so successful lately. Meanwhile, when I look at Na'Vi, look, they're placing top 4 in some big tournaments. They're usually at least placing top 8, as they will once again do at least at this major. Like, they are certainly a top 10 team in the world. They're probably, kind of in that 7th to 8th position, I think would probably be a good place to put them right now. I do think Bit has played really well this season. He's playing really well this major. I think Wonderful has shown improvement this season. He's playing really well this major. I think Ema, low-key, has also been playing really good this major, particularly as like a secondary entry fragger. His opening attempts aren't as high as, like a Makaze within his own team, or as high as like a Yakindar or a Flames, or a Kiyosuke or a Donk or something like that. Even though he used to be the primary entry fragger of this team. But he's still doing it a pretty high amount, and he's very successful at it. And he's also been a good aggressor on the CT sides as well. He's actually playing a really good game. So they do have 3 pieces right now that are all playing at a high level. The issue is this. Makaze is a rookie in these playoffs. Yes, Maladoy is as well, But the way that Maladoy has responded to being a rookie throughout the course of this season is much better than that of Makaze. It's not even fucking close. Like, Makaze is such a wild card where he can have kind of crazy high highs, particularly aggressively defensively, but his entry fragging is nowhere near the same level as Yukindar. And again, he's just nowhere near the same level of rookie performer. I mean, Maladoy's the rookie of the year. Makaze, I would put him well down the list. I mean, he's not even up there with like PR or Tanier. Nowhere near Kiyosuke, obviously. Like, he's just not on that same level. Yes, he might still have room to grow, but this is a major playoff. I haven't seen him be able to hit the same highs as some of the other rookies. And yeah, I just think Furia have better firepower. They're in better form. They have a better map pool. And I just think everything points to Furia should be able to win this. Now, this is the one I haven't really delved into too deeply yet. But this is just such a fucking hard one to read because FaZe is just like I talked about this when I did a video with Lionhearts. So we did like a kind of tier list before the major started, and FaZe is just in their own category of bullshit where it's like they have been piss poor all season. Like, the only exception is when they brought Rain back for EPL, and they did well there. Outside of that, it's been a pretty disappointing year if we're 100% honest. Brokey has been terrible. Jacob, up until stage 3 of this major, was struggling to adjust to being on this team and being able to have a high output. We know Kerrigan's not individually known for fragging. Yes, Twist has been a star player since he joined this team on that trade with the Liege. He has been a fucking stud. Yes, Frozen has been the rock of this team and has been performing at a high level all year long. Yeah, he's had a couple of dips here and there, but for the most part, he's been pretty fucking fantastic. And yes, FaZe are on this magical run where not only was their season dog shit, but their stage 1 was dog shit. I mean, they were seconds away from getting eliminated by fucking Red Canids. Come on, folks. And then they almost lost to Fluxo as well. Like, they barely got through stage 1. Then they 3-0 stage 2. But then when you look at stage 3, I mean, even that one is not crazy impressive. I mean, they had to go all the way to the last day. Their last one was over Passion UA, was one of the weaker teams in the field. And it's just like, I don't know. But Twist is still playing well. Frozen's playing well. Jacob has come alive through stage 2 and stage 3 and is actually turning the corner. Will that last? I don't know. He's also a major rookie and a major playoff rookie. And again, he's kind of similar to Makaze. He might even be below Makaze in overall form for the season, right? So it's just like, I don't really know what to do with that. And I also don't know what to do with Brokey because, I'm sorry, yeah, he performed well here in stage 3, but that does not forgive him the sins of how rough he has been all year long, really. And I really feel like he should have never been brought back off the bench. And that puts him in a tough spot. Then you got Mouse Sports. They almost always place top 4. I mean, they are a consistent top 4 finisher in almost every tournament they play in. Last season, they were just always second fiddle to Vitality, where they clear number 2 team for most of the season until Furia kind of started charging, and then obviously Spirit was still lingering around as well. This season, it's been, obviously Furia have surpassed them. You've seen Spirit kind of hang neck and neck with them, so to speak, and obviously even Mongols were in the picture up until they lost Senzu. But they do have a really wide distribution of firepower. Torres, he's a really solid opper. He's definitely a better opper than Brokey if we're going head-to-head in this matchup. I think that Xerxin is definitely a better entry rifler than Jacob. He's fucking crushing it in that regard. I think Spinks can match someone like Frozen in overall firepower. Great trade fragger, plays star CT positions very well. Twist does kind of become the one factor you can maybe put in FaZe's favor, where I feel like if you compare him, I mean, I guess people are like, I don't even know how you would do direct comparisons. This is like getting really messy, actually. But you get my point. Like, if I just do the combination of Twist and Frozen against the combination of Jimmy and Spinks, that's actually debatable. It's actually kind of debatable, especially because Jimmy hasn't had as strong of a year this year as he had last year in general. But Spinks is a really good fucking trade fragger and a really good CT player. So, I mean, he's pretty close to like a Twist and a Frozen in overall form. You might tip him above Frozen. Maybe he's below Twist. Like, I don't know. It's kind of weird. When it comes to in-game leading, Kerrigan's a better in-game leader. Brolin's slightly better fragger in the in-game leader role, but I mean, it's not like he's fucking knocking your socks off. And the one weakness for Mouse Sports is that their T-sides have been pretty bad overall, if we're honest. Like, it's not been pretty. There's a couple of matches their T-sides are fine, but there's a few matches where they're really crap in the bed. Like their overpass T-sides are unconvincing. Their nuke T-sides are unconvincing. They've had some issues on a couple other matches as well with some of their T-sides where it's just like, I don't freaking know, man. And then FaZe is just an enigma wrapped in another enigma where I just don't know what kind of FaZe is going to show up. Is the FaZe of the season going to show up? the FaZe of Stage 1 going to show up? Or is the Stage 2 FaZe going to show up? Is the FaZe that made the fucking crazy Copenhagen Major run going to show up? Or is it going to be like the Shanghai Major where they barely skated into the playoffs and that they did get eliminated in the quarterfinals when it was all said and done, right? That is where it gets very tough for me. But I do just like Mouz, maybe the towards you on home soil angle you could put in there as well if you just want like a little extra bonus. But I do just think that Mouz has been in better form overall this season. They've looked in better form overall this major, even though they didn't play as much. I mean, FaZe is the one team that played all 3 stages. Mouz only played stage 3, so it's not necessarily a direct comparison. But I do think Mouz has just generally been better. Like they have better overall firepower. Yes, they have some discrepancies in their T side calling. That is an issue. I think their coaching can help them a little bit, and I think they can play well enough to get this win. Now, this is an interesting matchup because Mouz is the one team that has a head-to-head advantage over Furia. They've beaten Furia, I think, twice in 2 different best-of-3s, if I'm not mistaken. Furia hasn't beat them yet in a best-of-3, whereas Furia has beaten Vitality before. They've beaten some of these other teams before as well in various different tournaments they've played in. So that adds an interesting wrinkle. You have the Mouz on home soil wrinkle. There is like this crazy world where Mouz Sports beats Furia, gets to the semifinal. If they play Falcons, they get crushed. If Falcons makes it through, the Spirit Mouz one, if Spirit somehow makes it all the way through, is actually fucking interesting because they've always had kind of interesting like head-to-head matchups that have been very close. And then they were second field of Vitality all season long first season, but then they were able to finally get some wins over Vitality this season. So it's like there is a crazy world where Mouz wins this whole tournament, but they just so rarely win. Right? They just so rarely win. I mean, you look at 2024, they could rarely ever get wins at smaller tournaments. You look at this year, yes, they won a PGL event. Have they won anything else? I feel like my mind is just totally blanking right now. Yeah, I'm pretty sure all they won was Cluj when they beat the older version of Falcons in that best-of-5 3-1, which I was there. And they've made some other finals, but they've come second at all of those other finals. So that's the problem. They just don't win. And yes, they've been able to beat Furia head-to-head before, but Furia just looked better, and so Furia do win. Now, this is another coin flip matchup for me, similar to kind of the Falcons-Spirit matchup, where, yes, Furia have beaten Vitality the last 2 times they played against each other. They beat them in a best-of-5 grand final, and then they beat them in a best-of-3 after that the next tournament. So, yes, Furia had the head-to-head. They both have well-rounded map pools. They both have a shit ton of talent. They are both in good form. They are both the top 2 teams in the world. They are just doing it all. Vitality winning another major would give them both majors this year, the best season ever in the first season of this year, and would maybe allow them to kind of extend their era. Because the funny thing about eras is it's like no team just won it all forever for an entire year. Or they would have like a top 4 finish here or there or something along those lines. They'd have a slip here or there. But this team won 7 tournaments in a row, placed top 4 or better for the entire rest of the year, including a win. So they won 8 titles so far this year. And if they win this, they'll give them 9 titles this year and 2 majors. The Vitality era is still fucking on going into 2026 at that point, in my opinion. Furia, though, have something that they could do that's special. They could win 5 titles this season, including a major. Yes, it would not be as dominant of a season as Vitality's 7 wins in a row season last season, but this will be 4 tournaments in a row, and they won an earlier tournament, so they'd only be like 2 tournaments off the 7, and they had their major as well. Like, it'd be a really cool, like, dichotomy of, like, the Vitality Furia 2025, right? The first season dominated by Vitality, Furia kicking it off the second season, Fallen finally getting another major after all these years. The Furia guys like, Yuri and Keisarada, who have been there for so long and, are finally tasting success now with this version of Furia, and now they can finally taste a major trophy. How crazy that would be. Yakindar obviously has been able to be here before, so to see him do it would be incredible. And then Maladoy as the rookie, the rookie that makes it all the way, the rookie that wins a major his first year playing, like that would be such a fucking tantalizing story as well. And it's a best-of-5, and we know now that Furia has threatened Ancient the last time they played to where Vitality have to ban it, and we know how good Furia has been on Overpass, Duke, and Train. Those could be the 3 maps they need to just win the best-of-5. Yes, Vitality can win those maps. They are also good on those maps, but Furia's in better form on those maps lately, in my opinion. Yes, Vitality also can play Inferno and Mirage to a high level and DusT 2 to a high level, so, those, maps come into play at some point, somehow, some way, depending on what Furia bans out. They can ban out whichever they feel is the weakest for them. It could be a 3-2 series because of that. It could go all 5 maps. It could be a fucking bomber. But I am going to go ahead and lock in Furia to win the whole thing. The other reason why I'm kind of doing Furia is because I feel like there's a little less variance on the bottom side of the bracket. Like, I think it's way more likely Furia make a run away to the grand final than Vitality makes a run away to the grand final. Like, I think there's bigger hurdles. Like, first of all, Spirit could beat Falcons, so this could easily change. You know, I think Vitality beats Mongols, but Vitality could lose to Falcons or Spirit, theoretically. So this, like, when you're having to do the pick'em and you're having to get 2 correct quarterfinals, you know, 1 correct semi, and you got to get the grand final, I just think this is more likely. That, like, I don't see Furia losing to Na'Vi, so I think that's kind of a guaranteed quarterfinal. And I think this is probably a guaranteed quarterfinal, but this is a toss-up, you know? So I'm kind of thinking of it that way, and then it's like, I should get one of these semis right if Furia makes it all the way, and then Furia wins. You know, that's the most likely outcome, I guess you could say, off recent form. So that's kind of how I'm gaming the system as well, I guess you could say. But that's going to do it. Here's my playoff pick'em. Hope you enjoyed it. Again, make sure you go check out all the playoff preview videos I've done. If you haven't yet already, I've done these 3. I'm going to put out Mouz and FaZe Clan's quarterfinal preview video after the first 2 quarterfinals are played on the first day of the playoffs. I'll get that out before they actually play each other the next day, so you can have that insight if you want it. And, yeah, that's going to do it. Catch you next time.